Just before we proceed, just a quick housekeeping. If you would like to make use of the restrooms, they're at the back, the left-hand corner of the room. And we would also please implore you to put your phones on silent so we can all concentrate. And if you have any asks, any requests, please feel free to reach out to any member of the detail team. Again, you are all welcome to today's event, the Detail Business Series on Corporate Governance. Our firm, Detail, is Nigeria's first exclusive non-courtroom practice firm with about 20 years experience at structuring transactions and deal making. And in case this is your first business series, the main objective of our business series is majorly to highlight and discuss new trends and practices in the corporate and commercial law space. And for today's business series, we would be speaking on the evolving landscape of corporate governance, where we would be placing emphasis on new approaches, emerging trends, and the shifts in corporate governance practices. My name is Ifeanyi Omife, a solicitor here at Detail, and again, I say welcome. So, without further ado, I would now be introducing our first speaker of the day, Mrs. Marilyn Obaisa Osula, who will be giving a presentation on ESG, governance strategies for forward-thinking boards. And I'll just read her quick bio. Mrs. Marilyn Obaisa Osula is a seasoned sustainability and ESG expert with over 15 years of experience leading projects across Africa. As partner and head of ESG/sustainability and climate change services at PwC Nigeria, she oversees a team delivering comprehensive sustainability solutions to clients in the West African region. Marilyn's experience spans a wide range of sustainability issues, including ESG reporting, climate change mitigation, and impact assessment. Her deep understanding of the African business landscape enables her to provide tailored solutions that address the unique challenges and opportunities facing organizations in the region. With a strong background in business development and market entry, Marilyn has successfully guided numerous clients in navigating complex sustainability challenges and achieving their sustainability goals. Her commitment to sustainable business practices and her passion for driving positive change in Africa makes her a valuable asset to any organization. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Mrs. Marilyn Obaisa Osula for her presentation.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be in your midst. I see a few friends I met in Abuja. Hello. Every time I get people from the legal profession invite me on sustainability, I make it as a point of duty to come, no matter what. I've been with the arbitrators. Sorry, I can't remember the association, the full name of the arbitration associations for UK and Nigeria. I've also been with a couple of lawyers here and there. I love to say this because it's very important, because one thing is, so it's easy for people to see sustainability as we can just get away with just doing it. It's a soft thing. Nobody's looking at us. We all know it. In fact, someone told me this morning, I'm a nurse. Can you come and tell me how I can use my nursing to become sustainable? At least I can treat people. No, people just taking it very lightly, and I just laughed and I said, okay. There are other hard parts of it that could be very detrimental to the brands of organization, and which lawyers can save organizations from or help organizations to get into trouble, either ways. So today I will take my time to say this in context of your profession, and I would give a bit of time for questions and answers so that I get to answer the immediate thoughts that come to your mind when you saw the topic? Thank you. I think we can start with the presentation. Okay. This is far from me. Okay. All right, the light. Okay, thank you. So the first is every time, because of the numerous understanding of sustainability, and whether you're looking at sustainability in the literal meaning of the word or in the implied meaning of the word, it's always good to set that balance in the room all the time, and I like to do that. So give me a few, I will take my time to put that balance so that it helps the conversation going forward. So I will take like 2 minutes of my time to do that. Okay, so sustainability in the literal form is words. We are all aligned to it. How many of us want to live a sustainable life? You want to leave a legacy for your children. I know that's how we understand it, is the literal word. In the implied meaning, it's also the same. It's just that the implied meaning helps us to understand what we are really asking for. You get my point? I want to be sustainable. This is what it really entails to be sustainable. So when the definition, I think the most accepted definition is the Brundtland definition, which talks about us meeting our needs today without obstructing the needs of what? Future generation. I know that in Nigeria today, when I talk about future generation, everybody gets it, right? Yes, anything we are afraid of right now sometimes is how will tomorrow be? I'm afraid to say how will the next 3 years be before I'm misquoted. I don't want to be in trouble. But you understand what I mean. So that thinking is not saying that you're not meeting your needs today, which some of us think that sustainability is going to obstruct us from meeting our needs today. So you hear people saying it's a principle or is an issue of the developed world, right? That's true. I'm surprised Africans will even ever say such a thing. So by the time we break down the definition of sustainability, it then helps you as a lawyer to understand where you come in. Right, thank you. Now, so sustainability, having understood that it's a wide definition, what does it really mean for me to do something now without obstructing the needs of tomorrow? If I ask the CFO here, you say, we're going to be saving, we're going to ensure that we have very good savings for the organization, our cash flow situation is always positive and good, we are profitable, our stock market price is soaring, we are, what else? We are going concern year on year, right? If I ask you as a lawyer, you may have, or as someone in the legal practice, you may have what you would say I will do. But what is now happening is that as the world fully globalized, whether we like it or not, we're not globalizing, like we used to say when I was in university, we say globalize, we're globalizing. It's no longer a village. The next person is right beside you, right? I was at church, and I just saw an announcement, and I said, I don't know this face. They said, no, it's AI. I said, okay. They say it's AI giving us information. So with technology, we are globalized. If I cough today and I fall down, Trump can hear, and he can use it for his campaign, right? So I don't know if you're getting my point. So with that, the needs that we should be meeting today and leaving space for the future generation becomes something we need to look at more deeply. If you ask us, most of us are used to the financial bit of what makes us sustainable. But what sustainability in this new implied meaning is now saying is that you should look at your environment. How many of us know that Borno flooded yesterday, right? Or 2 days ago? I was amazed. It's not going to really affect financial. It's affecting people's life, health, all sorts of things. So our environment is key. I'm happy that a lot of Nigerians are taking that very important. In fact, when I told people that there are laws to building in Nigeria that says you must not cut a tree, if you cut one, you must plant 10, all sorts of laws, and most of them are sleeping, right? So I'm sure the lawyers will go and wake them up now that sustainability is coming up, so that people will do that. So environment is very key. Just trying to keep it simple, there's more to the environment. Social and governance, very important subsets. So when you now hear ESG, that's what it just means. Stop only looking at economics. Stop only looking at finance. Look at environment, look at social, look at governance, because that itself can also affect the economics, right? And can also affect the finance. So I like to establish this understanding. Do we have one common understanding, or is there an argument in the room? Next slide, please. Anybody arguing? We always have proponents, opponents, and people that sit in the middle when it's sustainability. I've had a CEO, I always say this thing a lot, and my senior colleague, Madam Awe, will say, Marilyn and her stories, who traveled with me from Abuja, a CEO of one of the banks, and I'm not going to call name, long time ago, 5 years ago. And I was reading a book on sustainable development goals, and he laughed and said, sustainability people, we have not finished feeding the poor, the country. I don't even care if there's been, or, because all he sees sustainability is waste, secular. He only sees as, let waste fill our streets. Well, let us feed our people. And let's use our energy the way we want. It's not your business. He was just, like talking with me. And I just opened the SDG goals to him, and I showed him 17 of those goals. And behold, number 1 of that goal is what? No poverty. Number 2, 0 hunger. And we had a hunger protest recently, right? So this thing affects all of us. That's what I'm trying to say. And it trickles down into individuals and also to your organization. There's an equation in a more serious business context, which is what we call the emerging, in PwC, we call it the emerging sustainability equation. It is when we look at our non-financial performance, right? And add it to our what? Financial performance. I know I'm supposed to be talking about ESG and new approaches, strategies for the boards and for governance, but I think this is very key to establish every time, because we know that sustainability is an emerging trend, and so it's important that people have that understanding. Now, when you talk about economics, we all know what to talk about, GDP, whatever, and all that. If, for example, and please, this is not political in any way, I come and tell you that Nigeria grew in 2024 by 7%. The GDP grew by 7%. What will be your next question? What will be your next question? How does that affect me? Right? If I said the GDP of Nigeria grew by 7%, the next question that comes to your mind right now is, how does that affect me? How does that affect my business? And how does that affect my future generation, my children? I mean, that's what you're thinking, intricately. So we're bringing these things to life to you. That's what sustainability is doing, making you think about it more deliberately. So if you look at environment, we talk about waste management. Waste management has business, that's opportunities, and has risk in it. The risk is what you are seeing in Bronu. So we don't have proper, maybe it's part of it, maybe there's no proper waste management. They filled all the channels with waste, so water has nowhere to pass through. Emissions, when we talk about emissions, we're talking about green gas emissions, which is where most Nigerians don't want to hear about, because we are basically one of the leading emitters in Africa. Yes, Africa emits what? 4% thereabouts of the world emission. But inside that 4%, Nigeria is one of the leading emitter, right? So while we are hiding under Africa emits 4%, we are still there. And whether we like it or not, if the energy sector has been ranked high as one of the sector for the high emission, there will be competition for energy in the market in the next few years. So whether we are sitting on our fossil fuel or not, we don't know whether one destruction can make solar energy the way to go. So you can't just say, there will be competition for the energy product. So it's part of the things that we have to begin to look. So as lawyers, you ask yourself, where do I play in that space? And so on and so forth. I only have 15 minutes. Same with social. Social, I don't even have to explain. We've talked about that. But let's go to governance, which is the core of our conversation today. Governance, next slide please, is very pivotal to everything that we do as an organization, even as a country. No matter what we preach, if you don't have good governance, all of you know it goes to the ground. The truth is, I traveled in with a lot of Nigerians, this morning, and I sat down in the car and I said to myself, God, we are blessed. We are blessed as a nation from the intelligence, the conversation, the way, they were trying to cheat us and we structured ourselves. You know how they treat us outside there, and before you know it, they took us in before they took the Cameroonians, all sorts of things that happened this morning. Yesterday night or this morning. But what came to my mind was how rich the mind of an average Nigerian is. But that's not showing because, we also have very core governance issues, whether we like it or not. And we look forward to seeing that ending. So just talking about governance in a way that you can relate, let me even bring it to the issues that make governance very important. One is risk management. Whether risk management is going to be financial, you're looking at it as a financial risk, as a systemic risk. You're looking at the legal risk. Whatever way you're looking at risk is very important for governance. And if you look at the World Economic Forum year on year, they come up with the top world risk. And I started getting interested in them, I think, from 2020 during COVID, right? Let's look at 2024. What's the first thing on that agenda? Misinformation and disinformation. And the second is extreme weather events. And the third is social polarization. How many of us know that these first three risks have crystallized in the world? At least in this country. With the advent of AI, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation. If you go to America and see what's happening with the election, even here, we're having that. Extreme weather events and also societal polarization. Interstate armed conflict. Those things have materialized. And as the lawyer, I think these are things you should also look at, especially when you're advising, you're doing legal advice globally. There are areas you should look at. Risk management is a very important area for you. As I said, that risk management is very pivotal to embedding ESG. One, purpose and strategy. This is where we have a problem in ESG. Everyone understands the concept, but we are not making it a strategy like we make corporate strategy. Do you understand? We're not saying, this is my sustainability strategy and I'm aligning it to my corporate strategy. There's no purpose for sustainability. There's this airline, I don't want to call their name, they're a very bad airline, and I just saw recently they've added one of their core values, sustainability. I said, okay, this is interesting. Today, I will take a survey. I'll do this survey and, do that. So it's becoming important that we have those. Then it's not only okay to say we are doing a sustainability strategy or whatever. Let's also have oversight. So for details, for example, if you decide to have a sustainability strategy or you decide to start your journey, it must come from the top. Because that's where you can now have what we call accountability and what? Transparency. It must come from the top. First of all, there must be an agreement that we want to make it a purpose, we want to make it a strategy, we want to embed. But it must also come from the top. That's where governance is. I don't want to hear things like, let them just be putting it together. And if I ask somebody on your board, what's sustainability, he's telling me, I don't understand. Then definitely it's not happening. So it must come from the board. And when you're playing an advisory role, you must say the same. Because while sustainability is bringing in funds in form of what we call sustainable finance, right? There's also checks and balance. You don't want to be on a board that is attracting sustainable finance and then you get an issue, right? So it's important that you are part of it. So what could go wrong if there's no governance check? And I'm going to share my deck. I have to be very fast. I know my time is fast spent already. If you do not make it cultural, you don't put it as your principle, you don't have a strategy for it, you don't measure, there's no accountability, what could go wrong? Greenwashing and litigation. Who can try to explain what greenwashing is? We understand. Greenwashing. Thank you, yeah. Sustainability, yes, when you exaggerate. And one of the first risks you saw in 2024 is what? Misinformation and what? Disinformation. Trust me, the likes of you, abroad, they love this. The moment I had the video I shared with a few partners in PwC where a particular perfume brand that you're popular, was accused of greenwashing, but I think greenwashing and another washing, which has to do with social. They were using child labor for their farm. And they said in their reports that they published that they do not use child labor. And they were able to show them the video of a child who leaves two children who leave their homes 5 a.m. to go and pick flowers and go, then that makes them now go to school later. I don't know, long story, and a whole video of it. Thank God that it's not PwC that is assuring them or supported them in the system. If not, they would have put us into the legal action. You understand? They say, after all, you were the ones checking them. So you need to see that there's some opportunities for you as lawyers, both for those who are defaulting and for you to also play advisory role as well. So another thing is loss of business. That perfume brand, all they need to do is to throw it into Gen Z, when a Gen Z link, and they lose business. They will boycott their product. Threat to social license to operate, and that's quite clear. So when you're doing advisory on social license to operate, please, this should be part of it. Sustainability should be part of it. Then threats to your brand reputation, that's quite clear. In Africa, it may not be so strong, but with time, it may get stronger. How many of us know about the Volkswagen story, where they said that they had promoted diesel car with low emission, environmental friendly, only for them to discover that when it was tested, it was a lie. They were sued to court, and it cost them 30 billion USD in fines, legal settlements, vehicle recalls, and severely damaging its reputation. There are many more. We have those, in fact, there are many more, but I have only 15 minutes, so I don't want to tell too many stories. So please don't be short-term focused. That has been how we've been thinking. It cannot work again in a globalized world. 2, regulatory and compliance complexity. There's a lot of rules and regulations coming in with standards, ISSB, IFRS. I know that Madam Aware will speak more about that when she comes to speak. So many of those regulations coming up. Balancing stakeholder expectation. Your stakeholder is not only your customer now, it's also I'll give an example. When we had NSAS, if you remember what happened along Admiralty, some of those banks were, some were not touched. So a group of people were told to do an analysis why that happened, and it fell down to stakeholder engagement. When they wanted to go to touch those banks, the area boys that the bank had engaged to, help us trim flower, just engage them properly, they came and stood and protected their property. Now, this is where our bread and butter is coming from. And, that kind of, I can imagine from there, they could become security men. And, I've seen security men become even move into management. We need to begin to see life in a more balanced way. Global and local concerns. If you want to trade globally, you can't throw sustainability away. If you even throw it away, when you get to the customs, they will ask you, what's your emission? How did you look? They start asking a lot of questions. And as lawyers, please, you need to start looking at that. There's CBAM. There's a lot of standards that you can help your clients with as well. Innovation and technological barriers are things that, are challenges to, people looking at sustainability as a forward-thinking board. But if you're forward-thinking, you would split this around and make it work for you. And of course, the risk of greenwashing. There's more washing, there's blue washing, gray, brown, all sorts of washing coming up. And as the taxonomy of sustainability becomes more rich in the next, I was saying 2 years ago, in the next 5 years, so let me say in the next 3 years. And the speed is amazing. So, we catch up as it is. So what's the call to action? Please encourage your clients and even you within your practice to have an ESG committee or some committee assigned to ESG and sustainability conversation. I know the lawyers ask me that our emission is little. How many fuel do we burn? I said, your environment may not be material to your business, but you need to look at it round to say, okay, social, is governance, material. It's not just how it affects your business, it's also how your business affects others. Next is board culture. Culture is important, and I don't need to write that. Then, making sustainability a factor when hiring across the organization. So you need to promote this culture in such a way that when people are even coming to your organization, they realize they're coming to an organization that is sustainability driven. And it's so wide, I call it an octopus, that's sustainability. It affects every profession, every unit, everywhere. It affects you as an individual as well. For it to work, the tone at the top is important, which is what? Board level buy-in. I didn't just say board level awareness. Board level buy-in. If your board is divided, you need to make them buy it in. They must all align because it is such a wide thing. It's so, if you are going with 17 SDG goals, I'm sure in the next 20 years, you've not exhausted all those targets. Or it's a lot. So that buy-in is important so that that journey is steady. Someone told me, when does the journey end? I said, when does the financial reporting and financial service, and as long as you want to make profit, you must also be sustainable. I don't know if that is clear. Then sustainability and climate change related risk oversight is very important. Please, it's important that we keep on looking at our risk in this area. And it's not the same for all organizations. Of course, you embed ESG or sustainability, as the case may be, into your core strategy. You already have your strategy running as an organization. All you just need to do is do a review. If you're not doing it 2024, make sure you do it before 2028. Because if you're a public interest entity, PI, you'll be reporting on sustainability mandatory in Nigeria. Next is reporting and disclosures. They gave me 15 minutes, so they just wanted me to be doing touch points. So next is reporting and disclosures. So if you've not started doing any reporting, you can start. Please, it's better to take manageable steps and realistic steps. Make your goals smart. Some people want to go and start doing emission to the highest when they know that just do your cost benefit and also do what we call a materiality. What's material to your business at least? Just be honest and transparent that when a third party comes, they can nod and say, this makes sense. It's better to do that than to be accused of greenwashing. And with this, I say thank you. If I still have 5 minutes or so, I can take questions. 15 minutes is too short to talk about sustainability. Minimum 30 minutes. It's such a lot to talk about because it's new, right? Okay. Questions? I'll take one here, one here. Do I still have time? 3 minutes, 5 minutes? Okay. Questions? One here. No question. Okay. Interesting. All right. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah.
Here. Sorry, ma, one question here, please.
Thank you.
Good morning, ma, and
morning.
Thank you for the delivery. That was quite smooth and straight to the point. My question will be around carbon trading, emission. From where you sit, what do you see around Nigeria going into the carbon trading market? Have you seen any transaction recently in that regards? Because it's good to preach it, but the question is there a market for Nigeria as we stand today? I know that in US, in Europe, they have much developed markets where you can trade carbon. But what do you see from Nigerians' perspective today?
I think it's quite disheartening that Nigeria has not even started because we have all it takes to do carbon trading already, right? But what I would say is that I think at COP26, 27, COP26, that's the UN event, but you know COP28. Okay. Before that COP28, everybody knows COP28. I know why. So before COP28, there have been other COPs, but this COP28 became popular. So people went to Google, what is this thing, Save? Where are they? How many delegates going? Okay. So COP26 and COP27, I think, it came to the president quite clearly that, okay, we're missing some monies here. We're so fixated on getting financing through the IMF and oil and gas financing that we're not even looking at other low carbon economy financing, which is the green, blue economy and circular. So they've come up with an act, and I'm sure you know, as lawyers, you know that act, Nigerian Climate Change Act. And it's been operationalized. Probably, Madam Awe will speak more about that. I think our topic is a bit tied to that. But again, because it came at the time when the government was changing. And I'm giving you this background so that you'll understand where I'm going to in my answer. They didn't pick up as fast as they should, but I think now they will pick up. I think the first move has been the 2.5 billion carbon market plan that they've done. They're trying to bring in 2.5 billion USD through the carbon market. So there's a structure. It has gone for public comment. There's an event on it in October and all that. Yes, I see a big opportunity for carbon market in Nigeria because we have what it takes to do it. If Kenya has partnered with Saudi. I don't know if you've seen how much. Just go and Google Kenyan carbon market. They've started earning money from the carbon market transactions. So as a lawyer, of course, you need to go into those transactions and look at where you can play a role. They started earning some money into that. But because of understanding structure, and I don't know whether it's the African thing, our price here is not as high as they get in other regions. So we can scale up our price with good structure, transparency in reporting, which is why we're making sustainability reporting compulsory, so that by the time the carbon market kicks up, we're able to say, no, we have IFRS, ISSB reporting standard, like we also have it for our financials here. And we are sure that investors can, leverage our reporting and things like that. And that's why if you look at the reporting, S2 of the reporting is talking about carbon, carbon, carbon. And yes, there's money in it, and I see a big market for that. Are companies doing it? Yes. Nigeria, they don't wait for government. I've worked with a few. One of the challenge that goes back to them, they become eligible, is that we don't have an emission factor and we don't have a framework, which is what the government is launching or something. They are working on it in October. I think they'll finally launch that framework, and things like that. It's gone through a lot of process. It's one of the challenges that they have. So some of us, like for us that are global firms, we enjoy that. We push our data to our global firm and they use it to get all the carbon rating and rebates and all that for themselves for now. I don't know, maybe when we start our markets, we can push back and say we can get some. But we do that. Most people who are multinationals pick their data that way. Again, the market is still young. They are still growing a lot of standards within the market, but it's occurring, and yes, there's a big market for that. Thank you. So. I can borrow you.
Thank you. Okay, so Temidire Ajayi, I work at Detail. So just to ask, with everything that you've said is great, fantastic, wonderful, because we think that ESG has been growing in Nigeria, and there's this growing movement for ESG. But I just wondered, our role as lawyers is understood, but for some of our clients who are in this room, who are just corporate companies working across sectors, what do you think, or what should the takeaway be in terms of their strategies for ESG? Because there's some people who believe that it doesn't really apply to us. We don't get investment from foreigners, so we don't have to comply with any reporting obligations. I'm a hairdresser. What's my business with sustainability, for example? So I just thought if you could just one or 2 points, just guide us in the strategies. Thank you very much.
So I hear your question. SMEs, small businesses, medium and large corporates. So for the small businesses, I will be very frank. I'm accused of being always literal. I'm sorry. I will not give them too much burden. Although in 2030, a standard is going to come out and Nigeria will still adopt it for small businesses. And the essence is to be able to push foreign direct investment to small businesses. If you say you don't want money as a small business, please let me know which small business doesn't want money. I really want to sit down and understand the thinking behind that. Which small business doesn't want to grow? So they would eventually do it. Of course, that's why that standard will be specific to them, which is something that they can, with their business size and scale, they can use. But for now, I always advise small businesses to look at it from a cost-saving perspective. For example, if you say, I look at your books and I say, what's your highest cost? In Nigeria, it's always energy. I say, do you know that a particular bank, if I call the name, they say I'm advertising, is giving loans for solar generator at a very reduced cost if you can show them that you are going to be part of their sustainability, because when they show that, they too get money from their, are you getting the chain? But the communication is not there, that's number one. Number two is also the fear. You need to structure your business in such a way that people can trust you. So one of the greatest problems for small businesses is that trust, structure and trust, which you need to do. Unfortunately, outside the country, when I'm talking to small businesses, the country is already structured in such a way that if you default, everything is connected, so it's easy for you to trust a small business, right? But in Nigeria, we are trying to do that with our NI and BVN, you know, we are still getting there. So some of the banks are a bit strict in who they give that to. I can talk about BOI, so I'm not advertising them though. I know they do something like that. So I try to push them towards this because the cost may be high now, but in the long run, you produce more and you will pay less for energy. Forget what's happening in Imo and Enugu State. That will be dealt with. That's really funny. That news was really funny. But how many of you heard the news where they're going to charge people for using solar? Well. Anyway, so I'm just cracking a joke here. Please don't take me to the governor. Anyway, but you understand what I'm trying to say. So that's for small businesses. So I go to the areas as their pain point and try to show them the risk and opportunities that sustainability brings to them. When you go to medium size, they have no choice, right? They have no choice. What happens to Nigerians most time is, I call it the pure water approach. Not everything is your business. The question is, what is material? What impacts your business? And what does your business impact? It is tied to your business model. So if I'm selling cloth and I'm farming, will my environment here and my environment in selling cloth be the same in scale of materiality? Okay, so that's where the issue is. So that understanding it and not just doing it as a, you know, yeah. So getting a strategy for it is very easy. You cannot do it alone. Everybody in your want to talk about it. And you can come up with a strategy very easy. And if it's difficult, you hire me. And then for large corporates, you have no choice as well. Your brand is at stake if you leave sustainability on the floor in the next few years. I asked someone from IFC, how many years do you see that sustainability is going to affect people, the brand's organization? She asked me back, I told her 10 years. That was in year 2001. She laughed and she told me that if 5 years is even too small. I thought it was a joke until I started to see global organizations reach out to us because they have branches here to say, can you just help our branch understand how important these things we're talking to them about is? And with time, it will gain strength. I tell people, it took one disruptor to change so many things in our lives. How many of you agree? Just one person talking about, why should I put a phone on the table when I can carry it about? And today we are carrying it about. So it will take one sustainability disruptor to change the thinking of the world. As of today, there's a lamp that you just put water in it, and it can give you light, salt water, and it can give you light for 28 days. I wrote them. I said, please, I'm interested. I'd like to buy maybe 2 or 3. They told me they were overbooked, and that the fight in Russia, Ukraine is affecting their supply chain. Imagine when they are able to come back and they're able to disrupt and scale. Some businesses have gone. So you need to start thinking as a businessman. Thank you. Any other question? Online.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I
So-
wasn't aware of the online audience. I hope they heard me
Yes,
loud and clear.
yes,
I
loud and
apologize
clear.
for that. Okay.
So I have a question here, just one question. It says, can we know the name of the bank that provides support for alternative energy?
Ask your banks. Most of them have that table, but they are just not, I don't know why they're not really advertising. Like I said, I think it's a bit of trust issue with small businesses, and I don't know. We will get there. I think BOI does it. At least I can confidently say that. I think BOI, and BOI, please, if it's not true, I stand to be corrected. But because they are more government and open, so I think they do something like that. You can approach them. If they are too big for you, but I think local banks, some local banks are encouraged to support. Plus, I saw a news from the newspaper that IMF is going to give loans for solar power, to the country. So I don't know how far that has been. I am not an authority to speak to that for now, but I know that you shouldn't sit down on your old thinking that is all that needs to be. I've seen people who have embraced solar for their business and they are thanking God. I know some people who, they just buy units, 2,000, 5,000, just to keep that, just to keep that thing running. Yeah, so, but it's important to look at your energy sources to save cost as well. Thank you. Is that all?
Hello. Please put your hands together for her. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful and insightful delivery by Marilyn. I think for me, the key takeaways were the fact that sustainability affects everyone, and if you don't make sustainability cultural, a lot of things can go wrong. Now we'll move to the next presentation on the topic governance strategies for forward-thinking boards. This will be taken by Tinuade Awe, and I would read her profile. Tinuade is a seasoned legal professional with a distinguished career in corporate governance, ESG, and regulatory affairs. She completed the Competent Board Sustainability and ESG designation and certification in March 2024 and holds an LLB from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and LLM degrees from Harvard Law School and the London School of Economics and Political Science. She is admitted to both Nigerian and New York bars. Tinuade is an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers of Nigeria, the Institute of Capital Market Registrars. She is a fellow of the Compliance Institute of Nigeria and a life member of the Chartered Institute of Directors, Nigeria. Until February 2024, she was the CEO of NGX Regulation Limited, the independent regulatory subsidiary of Nigerian Exchange Group PLC. From 2010 to 2020, she held other roles within the NGX Group, then known as Nigerian Stock Exchange, including Executive Director, Regulation, General Counsel, Company Secretary. She was a member of the Senate's Technical Advisory Committee on Companies and Allied Matters Amendment Bill 2020. She served 2 terms as a member of the Board of Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria. During her 2nd term, she served as the chair of FRA's Board's Corporate Governance Committee, which had board-level responsibility for overseeing the implementation of Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018. She was recognized as one of the world's Federation Exchange's women leaders from around the world in Premier Set of 2021. She's a recipient of the African Legal Awards 2018, General Counsel of the Year, Law Digest Africa Awards, General Counsel of the Year 2018, ESQ Nigerian Legal Awards, and General Counsel of the Year 2017. Currently, Tinuade serves as a consultant and trainer in the governance and ESG space, leveraging her extensive experience to guide organizations in implementing effective corporate governance practices and sustainability business strategies. Please, let us put our hands together and welcome Tinuade Awe. You're welcome, Ma.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Marilyn, for setting the stage. So I'm going to be talking about different corporate governance trends and, what are the imperatives as we encounter and consider those trends. If I can have my presentation up, that's fantastic. I will use my own, because my eyes, I have 4 eyes and I really can't see well. So if you just give me a minute to open this. So, by show of hands, what does anyone think are the trends, the current trends that we have in corporate governance? Any ideas? Nobody's willing to take a stab at it. Okay, so let's go to page 2 of my presentation, where we'll basically cover, in my own opinion, some of the trends that people should be thinking about. I'll do an introduction, then we'll talk a little bit about ESG. Marilyn has really gone through it, but there are 1 or 2 things that I would like to pick out. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, technology, small and medium enterprises, which we also spoke about, public sector governance, and then how do we adapt to these trends? Can we have the third page, please? Yes. So in my view, there are quite a number of trends in corporate governance, and if you look if you can see the screen, you see what some of these trends are. Perhaps we can have some of the lights off so that people can see. Maybe the ones nearer this place, I wonder. Some of them are, I think the gentleman asked about carbon credits and the carbon market. Some of them are sustainable investments. If you have a business that is in the sustainability space, that might be something that is attractive to people. And there are trends around there, ethical leadership, advisory boards as opposed to actual governing boards. And for example, if you look at some of the multinationals and global companies, you see that some of them have advisory boards for certain types of things. So an advisory board on ethics around AI, for example, an advisory board on issues like the way that they treat human beings and so on and so forth. So there are quite a number of topics that are trending in corporate governance. Can we go to slide number 4? This is the ESG slide, and that is because ESG is one of the trending topics in corporate governance. One of the things that I would like to point out is that what is trending now is reporting. Reporting is what is trending in corporate governance. But I always like to say that in order to have reporting, if you look at it from the point of view of an upstream, downstream, since we're in an economy where we have extractive industries, and you have an upstream, downstream approach to sustainability, what you will find is that reporting is downstream. Reporting is at the end. If you don't have production through the stream, you are not going to have reporting. And so that is why, from a corporate governance perspective, the emphasis should not be only on reporting. The emphasis should be on what the IFRS S1 standard calls the core concepts. The core concepts are around governance, they're around strategy, they're around your matrices and your targets, and around the risks and the opportunities. It is when you've looked at all of those 4 things that I've said. Again, the governance, because of tone at the top, the strategy through which you will achieve your ESG objectives, then the targets that you have, and how you will measure those targets over what period of time, the risks and the opportunities in your business that you can then talk about having a report at the back end. So it is very important that because reporting is trending, we don't only start from reporting, because otherwise you are dead on arrival. We need to start from the basics of what exactly are we going to be reporting. And that's why I think if I go to my 5th slide, the evolution of ESG in Nigeria is very important. because I've put some of the highlights that, again, in my own opinion, really help us to frame ESG in Nigeria. But these are just some. They are not all of them, again, because the timing is short and the idea was just, as Marilyn said, to give highlights of certain things. Now, if we go to slide 6, I want to focus on the adoption of IFRS S1 and S2. Notwithstanding the fact that I'm saying reporting is not the most important thing, even though it is what is trending. It is important that we look at this adoption of IFRS and S1 and S2. What is the Financial Reporting Council saying? The Financial Reporting Council is saying, for reporting, I'm going to give you a phased approach. For reporting, you will have a phased approach. Now, if you look at number 2, which is the voluntary adopters, we're in the voluntary adoption phase now. Nobody is mandating it. How this locks into what I had said before is that in this voluntary adoption phase, your clients, since I'm speaking to the guests of a law firm, have the opportunity to create their roadmap on those 4 things that I spoke about, have the opportunity to get their governance right. So if you don't get it right in year 1, that's in 2024, you can get it right in 2025. You can get it right in 2026. But by Jove, as they say, start doing something. Start talking about that governance, start talking about that strategy, and the government is giving you 3 years for you when it is not breathing down your neck, it is not asking you to report anything externally. What companies can be doing in this period is that upstream, they can get it right in this period. And they can do internal reports that they don't expose. Maybe they expose, first of all, only internally. Then after a while, industry associations can come together and decide we will expose within the industry association before you get to the mandatory one that investors and other stakeholders will see. So, I'm sure that these slides will be made available to you, so I'm not going to, that's what I wanted to point out there. The other trend that I want to point out relating again to sustainability is that you are going to have assurance. So, days of puff, people saying, I'm reducing to net zero by 2040. Now, the government's reduction date is 2060. You can decide you want to be ambitious and say, I'm going to do 2040. Seplat, for example, has said, I'm going to do 2050. Seplat, Fidelity, and MTN are early adopters. So if anybody their reports, they can read their reports to see what they're saying. Now, what I'm pointing out here is that something that the board has to pay attention to, because that's where misrepresentation to come out. That's where the assurance providers may decide that this is a client that lies so much, we don't want to work with this client because they can stain our reputation. And that's why it's important to take advantage of those 3 years, because even internally, you can test whether iterate metrics and targets. So metrics, thank you. Metrics from year 1, you are reporting in year 2. So even internally, you can see whether what you are saying makes sense and whether it is consistent, okay? Don't wait for the assurance to come up. And when we say assurance, we have limited assurance, and then we have reasonable assurance. Reasonable assurance is the kind of assurance that the auditors give after they look at financial reports. So at some point, the government is saying, through the FRC, we will be giving reasonable assurance to these reports. It's not a tea party. You can't just say what you want to say. So boards need to pay attention. This is an important corporate governance trend. I'm going to leave ESG now, and I will go into diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, a big trend as well. I don't know how many of you are aware that the central bank recently issued guidelines for bureau de changes. There's a provision in those guidelines that I love. That provision says that the board of a bureau de change cannot be made of only one gender. Now, if you know anything about the boards of bureau de changes, and even the majority of people who work in bureau de changes, most of them are of one gender. And I'm not going to say the gender because I think you all know the gender. The CBN is saying as a condition of the license, because these things, when your regulator talks, it becomes something that you need to pay attention to, because, at some point they may decide they are looking at you, but at some point they may just think, okay, we're going to go because we have the regulation. So that's an example of something that has happened. Now, if you look, I don't know how many of you followed the McDonald's case. McDonald's CEO, I believe it was in 2023, he was let go by McDonald's. Why? Because there was a whistleblowing that showed that he had an inappropriate relationship with a colleague in McDonald's, and their policy, very important to have policies, their policy said you are not allowed to have those kinds of inappropriate relationships. So they had an external consultant come and investigate. They found out, yes, indeed, there had been an inappropriate relationship. And in the US, there are certain representations that you make to the securities regulator when you are a public company and you are under the authority of the SEC. McDonald's made a representation. They had exercised their discretion in deciding that they will allow him to go, but not for cause. Apparently, under his contractual arrangements, if they had said they were firing him for cause, he would have been susceptible to losing a significant part of his share options and everything. But in their filing, they did not say they had exercised that discretion. Now, a while passed, and then there was another whistleblowing, and this whistleblowing showed that this gentleman had actually had relationships with a number of other women in McDonald's. Not only this one woman, but the second one. And so the board was like, come on, no, so you didn't tell us when we did the investigation. So they went after him in Delaware court. There was a settlement. He had to refund some of that money. And then the SEC got into it, and the SEC said, McDonald's, in that your filing, you did not tell us that you had exercised this discretion. Your shareholders have a right to know. Why am I bringing this under diversity, equity, and inclusion? I'm bringing it under because it's a post-Me Too world. There are things that could have happened before Me Too that cannot happen again. There's some of you in this room that are aware of a bank. I'm not going to say the name. There was a Twitter storm about an allegation with the MD. What happened? The board, very, in my opinion, very good, got on top of the issue, decided they were going to do an investigation. Because they claimed they had a policy, and they also had a succession plan. That succession plan saw a woman come in, very good optics. So why am I saying all these things? Boards need to be aware. Succession planning, in your succession plan, do you have that diversity? Do you have, when you are thinking, you need to be thinking, I'm in a Me Too, post-Me Too world. You also need to be thinking that there's my products, even from an ESG perspective, are they able to be used by diverse people? You don't want somebody on Twitter to say, oh, all children can use this, but children with special needs, you are creating a product that children with special needs cannot use. So we're in a world where constantly, through your processes, through your operations, you need to be thinking about diversity, you need to be thinking about equity, you need to be thinking about inclusion. And there's stakeholder activism all over. It just takes one person on Twitter to claim you are not. A number of people come, then you have a whistleblower in the company. There's always a whistleblower in the company, and then it takes off. So these are things we need to think about. Very quickly, another trend is technology. Technology is big. Now, a lot of people focus on technology from an AI perspective. And what is AI? AI is data and algorithms. That's what AI is. Once you have data, you are already talking about data security, data privacy, data reliability. Is it reliable? How are you storing it? Is it corrupted? Is it clean? Is it raw? Is it being stored in accordance with, is it being collected in accordance with regulations, whether those are NDPR, GDPR, or any of the other regulations that you're thinking about? Is it subjected to intellectual property protection? Or some of you may be aware that a number of the AI companies that we use are now having to deal with IP claims as to you are using my IP to train your AI, and you are not paying or you are not acknowledging me. So a board needs to be, why are we using AI in this business? Because I don't want to be sitting in my boardroom after I've received my board fees, my director's fees, I'm feeling very cool, and then I just get a litigation that actually you used AI, and we don't even have an AI policy. So boards need to be thinking, what's our AI policy? Now that's the data aspect. There's the algorithm aspect. Algorithms are made by people, you and I. We have biases. Without those biases may be biased to a certain race. We have all sorts of things, ethical things that we're punching into the way that we're doing our algorithms, depending on our state of ethics. And that's why boards, if you look at certain boards, so if you look at the Microsoft, there's something they call it the Aether Committee. And the Aether Committee is made up of certain significant folks within Microsoft that are focused on ethics. In some companies, it's not an internal committee, it's an advisory board on ethics or an advisory board on AI. Help us to understand it. So we need to have, boards need to be thinking, we need an AI policy. Are people using AI to make my board papers? Are they therefore reliable? Am I potentially subject to some claim by somebody else? Cybersecurity threats, those have been around for a while. As we are protecting ourselves as the people who are on the good side, the people on the bad side are also trying to get into our systems. So a board needs to be aware, what are my major digital assets that can be subject to threats that require cybersecurity? If you are on a board and you don't know what the major digital assets are, please go and find out what are the major digital assets of this entity that we are using that are critical to us. How are we protecting them? How are we ensuring that we're up to date about what is being done? What are our policies? If you have certain assets that are very critical, if you're such as entities in the market I'm used to, the capital market, your trading system is a critical digital asset. How are you protecting it? Is anybody that has access to it? In a bank, it may be their core banking system, and so on and so forth. But boards need to be asking these questions. You don't want to wake up as a board member and find out that somebody in wherever in the world has control of your systems, and you are going out of business, or you have to pay a large ransom. Obviously, there's data governance. We don't really need to go on that. The next thing I want to talk about, the next trend, is around family businesses and SMEs. And here I have a picture of Chief MKO Abiola and a number of the businesses, a large number of businesses, like 8 of them, that were associated with him. I don't know that any of these businesses is still in existence. I remember when I was young, people used Chief Abiola as an example of a wealthy, industrious gentleman. What has happened to these businesses now? It is not for us to have a conversation about the whatever gist there is about the business. What I want to pick out is, what was the structure? Because it is a family business doesn't mean it shouldn't have a structure. And I'm glad to say that in corporate governance now, one of the trends is around family businesses. In fact, Marilyn has gone. PwC is going to have a family business conference later this year. They've just created a family business practice. It's good because I'm also aware of a number of members of families that I know have actually, they're taking the family business governance very seriously. I think LBS also has something now. I see Chioma is nodding her head. I don't know whether the society is involved in that effort. But family businesses, the structure of family businesses, the constitution, the fact that just because you are a member of the family doesn't mean that you automatically go into the business. That is how you have businesses like Estee Lauder, businesses like Cadbury, businesses like, you know, a number of them, 100 on CNN. I think we are all familiar with these businesses that have clocked 100 years. It's because those families have made a distinction between the business and being a member of the family. I was talking to somebody the other day, and this person was saying some of the things that are being considered in family constitutions are even like, you cannot be in the management of the family business unless you have an MBA. So it's not a question of whatever. It's like you can be supported by the family. The family gets the income from the business, but just because you're a family member doesn't. So you need to, corporate governance, that's a trend in corporate governance. And it's accentuated by the FRC coming out with guidelines on SMEs. Because many of as we know, the SMEs are a major contributor to our GDP, because a lot of our businesses are small, family-owned businesses, will be classified as small, family-owned businesses. And so the FRC, and that's the next slide, has come up with these guidelines around SMEs. And I put that / family business because a lot of SMEs are family businesses as well. So it's important that if we have clients who are SMEs, we start talking to them about these guidelines so that we don't come up with so many old businesses. I remember growing up, Odutola, Ojuku, where are all those businesses now? So it's all about governance, and the time of the family business, the time of the SME has come. Finally, another trend I want to talk about is public sector. The FRC, so you can see the FRC's imprimatur. So you see them in ESG, you see them in SMEs, and now you're seeing them in public governance. Now, public governance was something that the FRC attempted a number of years ago, and that attempt, we all know how it ended up. There were 3 codes, all of them suspended, and then I think what they did was they took it one by one. And so they've done the private sector, they've now done the SME guidelines, and they're going to public sector again. And again, this code is not strange in that around the world, issues around public sector governance are those issues are being considered. You know, if you are the regulator, if you are the one telling people what to do, you need to do the right thing yourself. You can't be telling people to submit accounts every quarter, and then we haven't seen your own accounts for 2-3 years. It doesn't make any sense. So these are the kinds of things. Now, I think this is something that, and I hope I'm proven wrong, that is going to take some more time. The conversation has started. One of the things, and again, as lawyers, since I'm speaking to a group of lawyers, one of the things that I find interesting is that this code, which has been released in draft form, talks about composition of boards, talks about, you know, how, what the duties of the chairman and all of that. But many of our public sector entities are actually created by law. And what I think is going to have to happen is some understanding between the legislature and a governance regulator like the FRC to say, let things around composition, let things around the governance of the institution be left to the code. And then in your law, you focus on the substance of the law. You can talk about the area of the economy that the regulator is supposed to regulate. You can talk about, you know, a number of other things, but with respect to the actual operations of the regulator, leave that to the code. Now, that's going to, in my view, require a paradigm shift, because I think that when the legislature is making law, and I was privileged to work on CAMA, And at that time, we were also working on the ISA. The Investment and Securities Bill, unfortunately, that one, hasn't made it over the hump. So I had a glimpse. I'm not sure how easy it is going to be to get the regulators not to exercise their powers over the entire space. But it's good, in my opinion, that the conversation has started. You remember when CAMA came out, CAMA had a number of corporate governance requirements that I think a number of us were like, where did this come from? Maybe you should have left it to the FRC code, because the FRC code had already covered the space. Thankfully, in the CAMA amendment, a number of them were dealt with. Not all of them, but a number of the corporate governance requirements in CAMA were either muted or removed. So this is a space that I think any student of corporate governance should watch. I am deeply impressed that a code has come out. The code has come out. We haven't heard any, not come out. The draft has been exposed, because obviously it's not yet, we haven't gotten to that stage. But we haven't had any uproar or any, strong antagonism to it from anywhere. So I think it's something that students of corporate governance should watch, and it's a trend, and this is not only in Nigeria, there are other countries in the world where public governance is really becoming center stage. Now, what I want to say is, as I round up, and I'm going to my second to last slide now, how do you adapt to these emerging trends? What do you do in the context of these emerging trends? I think the first thing is that boards have to have, boards and other governance structures, whether it's an executive committee or the management committee or as I said, these advisory committees that people are using now, have to have their hands on the pulse, and you have to have adaptable, flexible governance structures that can respond quickly. So if you have an articles of association that says only the board, you are that prescriptive in your articles of association, then it means that every time you want to do have an advisory board that has certain powers that the board can devolve to it, you need to go and change your articles, which doesn't make any sense in this, because we all know what it takes to change articles. So it's adaptable governance structures that devolve power to bodies while still keeping some sort of a structure over it. So we need to go to the drawing board around governance. That's basically what I'm saying. In Europe, as you know, they have the double tier board, they have the management board and the supervisory board. I'm not suggesting that common law countries need to adopt that, but we need to start knowing and appreciating that this one board structure that is not the only way of making decisions. And I say that with all sense of responsibility as a student of corporate governance, but you're going to need some nimbleness to confront what we have going on. And I think it's just a question of thinking. I also think it's a question of, if there was ever a time when you should be aware of who your peers are as a company and what they're doing. And thankfully, because of the internet and branding, a lot of what they're doing is out there. Constantly saying X company that is our peer because it's the same industry, it's the same sort of turnover and what have you. This is what they're doing around AI. Do we want to consider it, or do we think they're on the wrong path? Collaborations in industry, very critical. And you have the National Institute of Science and Technology. I think that's NIST in the US. That's a parastatal, although they don't use that word, but you get my point, of the Ministry of Commerce in the US. Really a convening type of body that is providing a lot of leadership around AI and what you should do with AI, responsible AI. Microsoft, a number of the other companies have a lot of information out there on how you should use AI. And so, educating yourself. The boards need constant training and development. Some people think that when you train a board, it's just a cushy thing. No, the board is the high governance body, and they need to understand. I was looking at a study the other day where a number of board members were saying that they're not comfortable. I think it's like 78% of this group that this company, a governance company, I think it's Diligent, had issued a report. I believe it's Diligent that I was looking at. They were saying over 75% of the directors didn't feel that they understood technology enough, and then everyone could think of one person that should be kicked off the board because they didn't understand technology. So, and but they were all sitting together on these boards. That's a problem in an AI world. That's a problem with all the new technologies. Continuous engagement with stakeholders, not investors or shareholders alone. The world that we have today, yes, the shareholders put down the money, but clearly the way that the world is being framed now, it is not only a shareholder world. And so a company that decides they only care about where the money comes from and they don't care about anything else will find very quickly that they're out in the cold in the world of today. I think we're going to have an opportunity on the panel to discuss more, and if they allow me to take questions, I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you. All right, so we'll take, okay. Thank you. We'll take the questions at the panel session. A round of applause for her again. All right, so for me, one of the key takeouts was the fact that we need more awareness for the board. You really can't, do without it. Policies around, basically everything she's talked about. So we'll move very quickly to the panel session, and the discussion will be on emerging trends in Nigerian corporate governance. And I'll, introduce our panelists right away. So the first is Ronte Fajana. She's an associate partner here at Detail Commercial Solicitors. Please put your hands together for Ronte. You're welcome. And she's going to be our moderator. All right, so the next panelist is the last speaker, Ms. Tinuade Aware, the former CEO of NGX. You're welcome, Ma. Our third speaker is the Council Impact and Investor Relations Officer at Sage Gray Finance, Goodness Wyatt. Please welcome to the stage. And the last panelist for today is Mrs. Chioma Modi. She is the CEO, Society for Corporate Governance. You're welcome, Ma. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, everyone. Well, welcome to this business series. It's good to have everyone here. And of course, welcome to my panelists. It's good to meet you all. It's good to see you all. Thank you for coming. So we'll get right down to it. So, I don't know, Mom, I note that you just spoke, so I don't know if it's okay if I just move to the next person so that I give you, some time to catch your breath. Okay, so I would go straight to Goodness. Now, Goodness, you're more of an ESG person, right? And just as we've spoken quite, or at least as the speakers have spoken, that the integration of ESG principles and practices into business strategies is no longer optional, right? And corporate entities in Nigeria must move beyond paying lip service, right, to ESG. So, in your opinion, how far do you think the ESG practices have been integrated into corporate governance practices? How far has it progressed, given that many companies are still grappling with the basic corporate governance, practices. So let me have your thoughts, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here. While I think there has been progress in integrating ESG into corporate governance practices, in fact, ESG actually impacts a lot of corporate governance practices we have, both from the regulatory standpoint and also companies that want to attract funding from DFIs, both nationally and internationally. Well, I think in terms of integration, as far as Nigeria is concerned, we have gone far compared to where we were before now, but there is still a lot of work to be done to fully integrate ESG into operational decisions, as Mrs. Aware has said, decisions at the board level, and also, in fact, day-to-day activities around how the company operates and also the supply chain of the company. For example, I could give an example. There was some kind of survey that was done in 2016, between 2016 and 2020, and talking about diversity and inclusion as far as ESG is concerned. I think there has been an increase of about 3% in 2016 to 16% in 2020 of female representation on boards of manufacturing companies, companies in the financial sector, and other companies. So the conversations are not falling on deaf ears as far as Nigeria is concerned. There's been a lot of integration, but there's a lot of work to be done, especially given how quickly the ESG space is moving. So, yes, I think that's how it is.
All right. Thank you very much for that. We're still speaking even though it's corporate governance, but we're still speaking along the edges of ESG. So, when you consider the space, the rate or the pace at which, technology is advancing, right? Now I'm speaking to Mrs. Mordi. Yes, please. My apologies, I didn't specify. When you consider the pace at which technology is advancing, right? We know that board of directors are facing new challenges and new opportunities in integrating technological solutions into their governance practices. So how do you suggest that a board would effectively leverage technology to stay forward-thinking and innovative?
Okay, thank you, and good morning, everybody, for still morning. So I think for us this morning, we've had a lot of discussions around digital transformation and the effect of technology in our businesses. And I think it's important. The two speakers have said it all, right? And they have pretty much expanded on the need for board to be aware of, one, their digital assets. I think Ms. Aware said so. And for me, it's more about the competencies on your board, right? And the skill sets on your board, and the structure of the board that speaks to the risk around technology. You have a board committee that addresses technological innovation, be it the opportunities or the risk, as the case may be. So I think for us, it's around what we have seen at the Society for Corporate Governance is around awareness, understanding what that asset, your technological asset is, or your digital asset is, then creating a structure, a framework that will address those risks and opportunities. So that's what, and I think the two speakers have really dealt on it this morning, on what the board should do to, to incorporate digital in your strategy, to know what asset, for me that was the key point from Tina, where what really, so you don't just follow the bandwagon. What really are your digital assets? What's your footprint? What are the risks, in your business operations? And do we have frameworks or structure that can address those risks and opportunities? I think that's what the board should look at.
All right. Thank you very much. I think it's very instructive, just like you said, that knowing the digital assets helps the board to be way ahead of, whatever issues that they may have and how to solve them. All right. So, Ms. Awe, back to you. Okay. So, like, one of the key things about corporate governance and ESG at this point is board diversity, and I think that's one of the things that you had, mentioned earlier. So, when we're talking of equality, equity, diversity, and inclusion. All right. So, how important do you think board diversity is in enhancing, corporate governance effectiveness, both in Nigeria and for the organizational growth? And what are the best practices for achieving board diversities?
Okay, thank you very much. I think board diversity is very important. There are quite a number of studies that show that when you have people from diverse backgrounds, you're tapping into the exposure, the experiences, the expertise from different places. And if it's properly harnessed, as opposed to it becoming just a cackle of different people speaking together, you can really use that to make fantastic decisions. And there are studies, there's a McKinsey study around women on boards, and several studies looking at the S&P and the ones that have women. I don't have any of those studies handy now, but it's a well-known fact. Now, how do you achieve diversity on boards? I think, as Chioma said, it has to do with board composition. So for a board to be effective, in my own view, you have to start with the composition. Now, traditional composition, when people are thinking about boards, you think about, does the person have C-suite experience? Because you want the person to be a leader, can speak amongst other leaders and whatever. Does the person have industry experience? Because you want to make sure that you are not putting a round peg in a square hole. Sorry, that doesn't make any sense, but you understand what I'm saying. And then finally, does the person have financial acumen? Because we talk about people, and profits. You need to talk about the profits and the economic sustainability of the company. I think now, however, there are a lot of other things that go into it. So if you are looking at just that traditional matrix for board composition, you are getting it wrong. You need to be looking at age diversity. You need to be looking at gender diversity. You need to be looking at diversity from the point of view of what are the things in my business. And so you have to have a laser focus on the future. Where am I now, and what sort of competencies am I going to need? And creating a diverse board from that. And I think this thing about people sitting down and saying, board members, bring your friends. They don't say bring your friends, they say bring competent people. But in the end, like calls out to like. Yeah. I will call Irene because I know Irene. Yeah. I will call Chioma because I know Chioma. It's just that. Yeah. So, there's a specialization that is growing around folks that help people to look for board members. And I think that people should invest in that as a consulting service. I need board members. Where are you going? What is your strategy? Helping you to develop the profile of your board members, and then you go for those people and you do the due diligence around them. So I think that's how you do it. It's becoming much more professionalized, and rightly so.
Thank you, Ma. So I think I would skip goodness at this point and just, okay, I'm sorry, I'll skip goodness at this point and go to Chioma. So Chioma, I know that just like Ms. Awe was saying, the fact that, people tend to just bring people on board because there are no specialized areas, for evaluating or searching for those board members, right? Have you ever had a situation or an instance where just for gender diversity, people just bring just anybody on board and, the person comes around and just spoils the whole board? And have you ever had such an experience or heard of such an experience?
Thank you so much, Roti. I think, as we were trying to, get the questions together, I was like, is it that Roti understands the kind of job that I do? So at the society, we evaluate boards. We do a board appraisal or board evaluation, which is one of the key focus of corporate governance that Tinu said. And I must tell you that I've seen a lot. So I'm going to be speaking from what I do on a day-to-day basis, what we see, in the field, as we call it as researcher as well. So we drive for diversity, at the Society for Corporate Governance. We drive for not just diversity of, gender is the basic that people look at. But for us, we are not looking at just bringing a female on your board because you want to tick that box that, okay, when Choma comes next time, I have, appointed the female director. I have a company that we evaluated at one point. Even going there to present their report, I was scared. Because a 13-man board, all men, big men, FT-looking men. And the first time we did the evaluation, it was one of our recommendations to say, no, this cannot work, right? And, the next year we did again, and I got there to do evaluation. I just saw one very cute lady sitting at the far corner, of the room. And for me, they ticked that, okay, they have appointed. Yeah. But that lady, when I spoke with her after the presentation, she was like, she gets intimidated. Wow. Even from, even at board meetings, yes. Even at board meetings, she gets intimidated because I'm new on the board. She's from, the far north and all that. So they wanted to tick the box of gender for females and also for regional diversity. But I could see that she was struggling. And it was also part of my recommendation to say that we are not yet there as regards diversity, both in gender and cultural, whatever the case may be. So we have seen it, and what we do at the society, we try to encourage, organizations to be more flexible, right? We are looking for competent women. We are not looking for just a woman on your board. We want somebody that can make impact at board meetings, that can lead discussions, that can query management, right? So that's what we look out for. And again, recently the society have started a service whereby we then recruit, because it's also part of the challenge that we saw during our evaluation that, okay, where do I get these competent people that you're talking about? So recently we've started recruitment. So we've recruit now for organizations where we understand your board, the gaps in terms of skill set, in terms of competencies and all that. Then we have a profile of, professionals, C-suite executives, and we then, do the whole process of recruitment, and we make recommendations to board, and that really has helped. So as Tinu said, you must invest in a third-party recruitment service, and not just to handpick based on friendship or based on who I know. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I think that is very instructive because with the way boards are being managed nowadays, people just fill the spot and just tick a box, like you said, and it doesn't help the business, and of course it doesn't help corporate governance principles. So to avoid being guilty of not having a gender balance, my next question would be to Goodness. All right, so whilst the presentation was ongoing, there were talks of ESG reporting, right? And we know that it's still in its early stages of development in Nigeria, right? But we can see that it's becoming important for both investors and stakeholders because they are demanding more transparency. In your experience, what challenges do companies typically have with ESG reporting?
So thank you very much. I think the first challenge companies usually have with reporting for ESGs is usually which reporting framework should I use? Should I use SASB? Should I use GRI? Should I use TCFD? Should I use even the IFRS S1, S2 that just came on board of recent? So the system currently has a plethora of standards, even the SDG impact standards. So companies need to seek some form of help, I would say help, on, okay, this is a particular area which I operate in. These are the ESG factors that are material to where I work. Is it child labor? Is it human rights? Is it the environment? And which reporting framework is best for me. For companies that have no choice in terms of public listed companies, we have both the guidelines from the SEC and also the guidelines from Nigerian Exchange Limited. So the first problem is usually which reporting framework should I use? And another thing that affects reporting, because as Mrs. Aware had said in our presentation, if you're not doing something, there will be nothing to report. Yeah. And if you also don't have consistent and reliable data with which you can report, you would most likely not report exactly what you're doing. Either you under-report or you over-report, which is greenwashing, as we mentioned. So there has to be a focus on gathering consistent, reliable data that is material to the particular area, either identified by stakeholders or even within the sector which a company operates. So first, reporting options, which should I report with? And also second is getting good and reliable data.
Okay. Thank you. Yes,
okay.
please.
So I'd just like to add that from, again, experience and what we see. I think for ESG, very brilliant, right? But I think that there's a gap in terms of awareness. Most directors don't really understand what those components is. How does it impact their business? What is my role as a director in ESG reporting, be it development of framework, be it materialization, whatever the case is. I think that there's a gap in terms of awareness. So people understand the definition of ESG, but how then do you integrate it to your business strategy? Like the first speaker said, there's still a missing link, right? And again, how do you now report is the next one. So I feel that knowledge and awareness is one key issue that is affecting ESG compliance or ESG reporting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that addition, Choma. Okay, so I would go to Ms. Awai now. And we're still talking of ESG reporting, right? So we know that Nigerian companies that embrace ESG reporting, there is the opportunity to receive sustainable financing, right? And I'm just wondering, what other opportunities are available for such companies aside from, access to financing?
Okay. So, for me, when I look at a business, you have the finance side, which is a given, otherwise you shouldn't be in that business. So anything where you can position yourself to receive finance is always a good thing, so long as you know what you want to use that finance for, because then you can get into another problem. I think there are things around your brand and your reputation as well, which are very critical. And your brand as an asset, your reputation as an asset, albeit currently intangible, are very, very critical. Being known as that company that cares and actually puts its money where its mouth is with respect to all these ESG factors is very, very critical. I think the other thing is that process of having a strategy, the governance around the strategy, having targets, having matrices, deciding what is relevant and material to your business is a process that also throws up by necessity risks and opportunities. So what you will find is that you may be going that way as you are doing your strategy and you are collecting your data, and then you find those opportunities as you go along. In fact, when you are doing your ESG strategy, it's just like any other part of your strategies, whatever. You will still do your SWOT analysis or use whatever system you are using to do. You will still look at your ESG risks. You will still look at your ESG threats. You will still look at your ESG opportunities. What are your weaknesses? So even in that, it's a deep dive into an aspect of your business that you may not have paid attention to if you were not required to go down this ESG line. And I know that there's also a lot of cost savings. So even if you are not exploring a business opportunity, there are risks that you can mute. So let me give you an example. One of the things that companies have to be thinking about now is what assets do I have that are risk assets within the context of all of this that we're saying. If we say Nigeria Net Zero 2060, we're now in the 2020s. Do I have assets that say by 2050 are going to be non-insurable? Because nobody's going to insure that asset knowing that by 2060, if it's an asset that violates your nationally determined contributions and the contribution that the Climate Change Council has given your specific business. So you start already thinking, how do I pivot from that line of business that uses this asset? Am I doing it through research? Am I doing it through development? Am I doing it through actually moving away from that business? So there's so many things that it's a new way. It's a way of thinking that really helps you to look at every aspect of your business and decide what do I quickly need to deal with now before it becomes a problem in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ma. So as you go in, you begin to see more opportunities. Yeah, thank you very much for that. And risk. We must not forget that, and risk. All right, I think my next question is for Goodness, right? Just as we have said and we've discussed, ESG reporting is the buzzword. What are the we know that there will be growing demands for professionals in that space, right? So what career opportunities are available in that space for professionals all around? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So from my background, I'm a lawyer, just like, okay, I'll just take us through the journey of me becoming, just to embellish the question,
yes,
of me becoming the Impact and Investor Relations Officer at SageGrey Finance. So from my former workplace, I had done board evaluation, which is where I kind of, got interested in ESG and such others, board evaluation, sustainability reporting and such others. And I mean, as a lawyer, I've been able to quickly pivot into development finance, ESG related consultancy and the rest of them. So there are a lot of opportunities for, in fact, I was at a meeting at the Danish consulate in Lagos yesterday, and the resource person we were speaking with was talking about even opportunities for training for, should I say, even students, growing industry leaders in the impact space that want to even get more training, sponsorship to learn abroad and the rest of them. And from all we've heard today, every company, even including law firms, would have to reevaluate themselves. What are we doing in terms of ESG? And so there's going to be a very, very high demand for professionals in the ESG space, ESG consultants, people that have the knowledge base. As she has said, there is really a dearth of knowledge within the sector. So if you're able to build capacity, educate yourself, gain experience within the ESG space, there are opportunities across board, both in the financial sector, manufacturing, in law firms, across all sectors. There are opportunities for people that have knowledge on how to integrate ESG, how to report ESG, and other areas. So there is opportunities for those that want to come. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. So there are opportunities across board in every sector. So it will be good for us to take those opportunities and work with it. Thank you very much, Goodness. All right, Chioma, yes, please.
The only thing that I want to add is that, with the assurance bit, there's the International Sustainability Standards Assurance Board. Forgive me, that may not be their real name, but they come up with assurance standards. I can see Jumoke is nodding. She knows what I'm talking about, but maybe I got the name wrong. There's an assurance standard that's supposed to come out later this year. It's IAAS 5000. And I was at a conference in Nairobi where I was listening to one of the officials from that organization, and she was saying that the standard is being created in an agnostic way. It's not being created for accountants to be able to use. And apologies to the accountants in the room. Now, the FRC has said, I will license the professionals that will do assurance. I think this is a time where other professions that believe that they can provide, this is a time when, get yourself familiar with that assurance standard. Start, I don't want to use the word lobbying, but, Bar Association, go and see the FRC. If there are a sufficient number of lawyers that know about the standard and believe that they can do assurance, lawyers do due diligence all the time. So it's, some of those skills this is an open field. It's so exciting so I just thought I'll drop that as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you, Ma, for that addition. Okay, so the next question is for Chioma. All right. So we have corporate governance framework currently operational in Nigeria. In your view, how effective is the corporate governance framework, right? And what are the key gaps and challenges in enforcing those corporate governance regulations?
Okay, thank you. I think the FRCN Corporate Governance Code, the National Code of Corporate Governance 2018, is quite comprehensive. It's principle-based. We have 28 principles, and what we have seen is an acceptance of the code, as the case may be, by different organizations. And we have also seen different sectorial guidelines, that try to align with that FRCN code so that it is more specific to their own sector. So that is also very functional. The PENCOM has one, NCC has one, and CBN and the likes. At the society, we've been very fortunate to work with all the regulators to establish these codes that we have in Nigeria. So the FRCN code is quite comprehensive, like I said, and well accepted. Yeah. And that's one of our bases or instrument that we use for board evaluation across all the parameters that we look out for. So that is it. But in terms of what can be done better for me, when I look at the regulatory space, I wonder if they have enough capacity to monitor compliance, right? So I see that a lot of organizations are willing to subject themselves to evaluation based on that code. FRCN is really doing a lot in terms of ensuring that you submit your corporate governance evaluation report or your corporate governance audit report at, I think, March 31st. March 31st, you're supposed to submit it. But I just worry about how then do they monitor, do they have that capacity in-house to monitor all this reporting and all that. Then also for the organizations, what we have also seen is people are gradually going off the ticking of boxes. I just want to comply and taking some, listed organizations, listed companies, most especially, or highly regulated organizations are going away from just ticking boxes than actually having those corporate governance framework, right, in place and implementing. So that's what we have seen. But in the flip side is just how the capacity, And also for me, what I'm also looking at is what are the benefits of complying? Yeah. Regulators should also think about what are the benefits, what incentive would you give to organization? At the society, we're also thinking on our own little way, how do we reward corporate governance compliance to different organizations and all that. So those are the areas I think regulators should look at.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. Benefits of compliance. It's actually to the benefit of the company that you comply.
Absolutely, it's one of them, but there should be incentives as well.
All right. Thank you very much for that response. Okay, so just to, so that we don't keep you waiting for much longer, just one final question for all. We've heard both from Chioma, from Marilyn and Ms. Awe on the key trends. So, Ms. Awe, I'll just ask you, or I'll ask all of you, like, mention one key trend, right, that you feel is shaping the future of corporate governance in Nigeria, and how companies can adapt to these trends.
So I think right now the keyest trend, in my view, is this whole issue of ESG reporting. I think it's really going to shape the way companies operate. I think that the FRC has shown since 2018 that it can be an effective regulator. Obviously, there are some things such as more awareness that I think the FRC and other stakeholders in the ecosystem need to do. But it's put its pulse on ESG now. And just as it put its pulse on the Corporate Governance Code in 2018, and it has a roadmap. So it's not going anywhere. It's going to shape, and companies have to shape up or ship out. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. ESG reporting is key. So we must ensure that we comply and then report. Yes, please. Goodness.
Okay. I think one particular trend that is going to chart the future as far as corporate governance in the future is concerned is the approach a company has to data governance, cybersecurity, and AI. They are actually very, very key. So if companies in Nigeria do not take the initiative and ensure that across the value chain, across every facet of both customer relations, internal relations, even employee engagement, to ensure that all of these are taken into consideration, it's actually going to affect a lot of companies. I'll just give an example. The Nigerian Data Protection Commission is coming out with a lot of enforcement for breach of data privacy and the rest of them. So as a company, as a board, as a head of department, you have to advise your company to take these things very seriously, because they could have both very deleterious effects on your reputation as a company, on even the finances, and also in fact, the very roots of your company as a going concern. So data security, cyber security, data governance, and also artificial intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Data governance is very important. We've had a situation where a bank was penalized for opening an account on behalf of somebody who did not subscribe to the account opening. So it's very important to avoid penalties from regulators and, of course, from the courts. Yes, please, John.
I think they've picked, so I'm left with, pretty much I would say diversity is also still there. Inclusion is also still at the front burner. Regulation, we'll continue to see more. Ms. Awe spoke about the public sector governance and all that. It's something that I'm happy to say that I'm even in the committee, the working group that is developing that, and we are engaging the public sector. So hence there's this engagement going on so that they can be included in the journey, right? And so regulation is still, it's not going anywhere. All right, so I think it's something that we should also take note of as well.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll now take questions from the audience.
Thank you very much for that very insightful panel. My question is to Ms. Modi. Is there a case to be made, considering what you said about the skills gap in terms of people who actually understand ESG, is there a case to be made for chief sustainability officers, which we've seen coming up in many other jurisdictions, and how can this be driven? And then also linking it to board diversity as well, that it's not just getting a diverse looking people, but a diverse skill set. So is there a case to be made for chief sustainability officers, which would be a C-suite executive who can then drive this agenda? Because sometimes you find that even if there's a sustainability team, if they're not senior enough, they don't have that influence to be able to drive the board in decision making when it comes to sustainability.
Thank you for that. I think it's important that you have someone at the forefront driving sustainability. But for me, when I look at the structure of an organization, I'm talking from the board perspective, because I think we've heard that it comes from the top, and they have to have the buy-in. So at the board level, if we can have directors that have competence, right, or you have a committee that can work with the chief sustainability officer or the DEX, that's, for me, will make the process a bit seamless and effective. So I feel that at the board level, where decisions and strategy of the business is being discussed, that would be my focus, right? To have that competences at that level. Then you have somebody that will drive it from a management perspective and then report to the board in terms of how are we doing in implementation and reporting and all that. Yeah. Then for diversity, I didn't get the question around diversity, your second bit.
No, it's been answered, I think.
All right,
yeah,
thank
it's been
you.
answered.
I just wanted to add to what you said and what Chioma said, the question you asked around the Chief Sustainability Officer. So for me, that's not where I would start the inquiry, although I understand the point around having somebody that is in governance, in the management, that is the chief driver of this. So the CEO doesn't just go to sleep until the next board meeting. But I think that where to start is actually from the board. Now, ISSB, the core concepts. One of the core concepts is in reporting, you have to show them your governance structure. So if your governance is not right, the reporting will show that your governance is not right. If you don't have any connection between the board and the management, and everything is left to the generalization of the CEO. So I think it's one of those things where by the effluxion of time, just as we saw Chief Compliance Officer, we saw the company secretary moving from what people think, oh, you are just a note taker, to actually being the Chief Governance Officer. It will evolve. That's my view.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, my name is Omotayo Akenrewa, and I just have two questions. The first being that while I understand that there's a lot of flexibility as to companies compliance with these regulations, particularly sustainability regulations now. Don't we think that when there is a corresponding consequence that goes with this reporting, it enables and ensures that companies do the reporting as at when due, as at when required? That's on one hand. Then secondly, I also want to know if there's an advocacy, going on regarding, ensuring, the enforcement of the reporting requirements? Thank you.
Who would like to take the question?
All right. So, with respect to your first question around if there's a consequence, I guess you are thinking, and if we go to what Chioma said about, should the consequence be a benefit? Should it be a carrot or a stick, basically? I think that sustainability, like governance, is a DNA issue. Do you understand? Some companies, no matter what you do, they're not going to get this in their DNA. And eventually, they will peter out because it's a sustainability issue. So I don't think, and I'm putting on my hat as a former regulator, there are certain things that are not necessary to legislate because you don't sit in the company with them. The reporting will show, and the market will decide for you whether you should do it or not. It may take some time. I mean, I would like to beat you up with a stick and make you do it, but I can't make you create a strategy. I can't make you create matrices. I can't make you create targets. It has to be organic. So unless I just want you to be reporting nonsense every year, my fining you every year is just me taking, and I'm not getting the effect I want, which is sustainable companies. It's not to create a fine for the regulator. So I think just as with corporate governance, which we've seen from testimony of Chioma, people are taking it seriously. People will take it seriously as the market, we just have to be patient. And because it's sustainability, it's a lifetime. So we have all the time to be patient. I think for your second question, are there advocacy efforts? Yes, there are various advocacy efforts. This is an advocacy effort for the stakeholders of detail. And I'm aware that there are, and as I'm sure the other panelists, different advocacy efforts. What I think is maybe there needs to be more coordination, and then industry entities, maybe like the MBA, the Insurance Association, which obviously should be very concerned about certain assets that are going to become uninsurable and obsolete, should be taking these things up. The FRC is doing awareness training. I know that they did some awareness in Abuja recently. They have talked about doing some in Lagos. But the FRC is only one body, and it's a regulator with a limited budget. So industry associations, so anybody that has a mouth in their industry association, let them, they have convening power. They should invite people to come and talk about these things. And I think it will keep flowing like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Is there any question online?
So we have one online. Okay, I have one question here from an anonymous attendee. I'm happy to hear your views on companies that just tick the box by selecting women they can control. However, we as men who know the board is just ticking the box with these incompetent women believe that it is a disservice to both genders, as these unqualified women take slots that should be given to more competent men and women. I don't know if you, I know someone had mentioned this. Sorry?
Chioma had actually spoken to that.
To that,
Perhaps
yes.
She'd like to repeat herself. Maybe the person didn't hear the
I
question.
think it was for him, it was just a comment and pretty much re-emphasizing the need of getting competent women on board as against just ticking the boxes and getting a female that is not as competent. So I think it's just re-emphasizing that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
And now we've come to the end of. You have another question?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay, I think this says, let the panel speak to the strategy for any sustainability/ESG team to drive the process in an organization. Let the panel speak to the strategy for any sustainability/ESG team to drive the process in an organization.
That question, I believe, has been answered.
Answered already.
Yes. But, goodness, you may as well take it again.
I could just quickly go over what we've said already. I mean, the whole meat of what we said is sustainability and ESG, first of all, is driven from the board level. So I'll give an example of my own organization. So when we started Okay. So when we started the conversations on impact finance, we were rebranding as an impact finance company. The first thing we did, which was at the board level, was to the board approved an impact finance framework, which is at the very, very foundation of our sustainability and ESG strategy. So it has everything about, okay, you're going to fund women and youth-owned businesses. You're going to fund SMEs. You're going to fund companies that have a climate footprint and the rest of them. So the very, very start for that strategy is for the board to, it's board action. Board has oversight over everything around ESG and sustainability. So the very first step is board takes action, which in this case is either a policy or a framework that's going to guide everything that's going to be done around the ESG strategy for that company. And then it goes from there to management. Management implements. So if you needed to hire somebody to oversee the integration of ESG into your organization, somebody's hired. If you needed to phase out old air conditioners that were no longer energy efficient, you phase them out and get new ones. So that's how it goes from the board management to the department to the individual. So you buy plastics. How do you dispose them in the office? You're no longer in a particular room. Do you switch off the lights? So all of that is part of this very grand ESG strategy and implementation we're talking about. But I think the key takeaway should be in all of this, as we've already said, it should not be a box ticking exercise. It has to be value driven, and there's actually value to integrating some of these practices we are talking about. We've seen them in practice, and as we mentioned before, businesses in Nigeria are grappling with energy issues, high cost of energy. So small things that we can do can actually greatly affect positively our ESG strategy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Goodness. So
One
more
last, yes.
question, please.
Okay. So I understand the sustainability reporting is an ongoing conversation. However, do we have a timeline we look forward to for these reporting?
Okay. Ms. Howard, you want to take that? Thank you.
Yes. So the FRC has divided the reporting into a number of phases. The first phase was the early adopter phase, which has already gone. Then the standards are effective now. So until financial year 2027, there's a voluntary phase. So that's the phase when people can voluntarily decide to report. Then from financial year starting after from 2028, that's the mandatory reporting, where if you are a public interest entity as defined by the FRC, you have to report. By 2030, if you're an SME, there will be additional information, but you have to report in 2030. So that's the way that it's graduated. So the mandatoriness, if that's a word, comes from 2028 financial year. Thank you. I hope that answers the question.
All right. Thank you so very much, Ma. I'd like to say thank you to all the panelists. Once again, thank you for coming. It was such a pleasure to have you and, to drink from your wealth of knowledge. And thanks to all the attendees for attending. And I trust and I hope you picked something that will be good and beneficial for use going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for the panel. Thank you. All right, we're gradually coming to the end of today's business series, and this is the session for photo ops. So immediately after these pictures, we'll invite the partners of Detailed Commercial Solicitors to, come on stage and take pictures with our panelists. Thank you. Please, the partners. First, the co-managing partner, Temidayo Jai. Please put your hands together for her. Yeah, and then the partners can come forward. We have Olaomi Elade and Anthony Ezamama. Please put your hands together for them. Thank you. So we're going to have gift presentations. Thank you very much, Ms. Tinuade. The next gift goes to Choma Modi. Thank you for coming. Mr. Goodness Watt. Thank you very much. So we've come to the end of this year's business series. I would like to thank everyone who made this possible, from the panelists to all of you, our guests. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you for the insightful conversations. And we wish you a wonderful trip back to your various offices and homes. And as part of our details style, we'll have a lot for you to eat and drink. So, I mean, just feel free, relax, and everything will happen outside. Have a wonderful, just outside and out there. Oh, in this room, actually, please follow me. All right, then have a wonderful day. Take care, bye.
Recording stopped.